Welcome to Laricy Live. You want to know what's happened in the real estate market? Then this show is for you. I'm your host, Matt Laricy. Today, we are talking about a very hot topic, and that's what's happening on Michigan Avenue. As I believe most people are aware, Michigan Avenue, which was once the crown jewel of pretty much not only the Midwest, but of retail overall, has been getting kind of crushed in a way. And, we wanted to know what's real and what's not real, what's actually happening. So we figured we'd bring in the biggest commercial broker, not only in Chicago, but I think, what are you, number one in the country?
Sure.
She's up there. So we have Deena Zimmerman with SVN Commercial. Deena, thanks for being on today. How long have you been in commercial real estate now?
16 years.
16 years. Does it feel like 16 long years or 16 short years?
Depending on which day you ask me. Today, 16 short years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So
I love it.
We're in a good mood. Real estate in general, guys, we have highs and lows.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the greatest career of all time. Sometimes we drink ourselves to sleep and ask us why we're doing this.
Sometimes.
So, I drink every night.
Me too.
But, so like what we want to kind of chat about is kind of get a different perspective of kind of what's happening on Michigan Avenue. And I know like the state of the residential real estate market around Michigan Avenue right now is actually it's really tough. It's actually, I would probably say my hardest real estate to sell right now is the residential on Michigan and like directly next to Michigan Avenue. Like previously, being on Michigan Avenue was like sexy. It was like, yeah, I'm on Michigan. Like you brag to your friends about it. And now in my world, the last 18, 19 months, because of looting and things of that nature, like people don't want to. They're like, ooh, Michigan Avenue, yuck. Like I don't want to be around it. And we have to think, what was the difference between like Michigan Avenue for the commercial aspect pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Well, it's interesting you asked that too, because pre-COVID, if you look at Michigan Avenue,
yeah,
right, from north, you're down near Water Tower, right, all the way, further south. It's really interesting because pre-COVID, things were actually moving further south over the bridge and across the river, which is interesting. And rents were again in that really middle pocket of Michigan Avenue. You're looking at average retail rents of $500 a square foot.
Wow.
And you'd go across the river, and for a long time, or across the bridge, and for a long time they were under $100 a foot.
That's a big difference. A
big difference, but then they were really starting to creep up because you were seeing, because of course retail, we follow residential, right? Which is why I'm so involved in what the things we do with CAR, because I want to see what, to your point, where are people buying condos?
Right.
Because my retailers, I work with a lot of nationals, they want to know what are people spending on condos and where are they going. So now you're pushing further down towards Millennium Park. You've got, the sexy NEMA down to south, in the South Loop. So all of a sudden those rents were, $200-$300 a foot. It was a deal. Right. There is a reset. And I think the pandemic definitely has something to do with that rental reset. I'm still not really sure. Rents are probably on average between $150 and $250 a foot now.
Is that on South Michigan Avenue or North Michigan Avenue?
I'm giving it as a whole
So
now.
that's
and mind you, that's asking. Now we're doing different. We're definitely doing, aggressive deals right now. But the bigger problem was, prior to the pandemic, and this has been not that it's a problem actually with retail. And again, you asked me, has this been a long or short 16 years? I love it because retail always reinvents itself.
Right.
But the biggest reinvention is, the omni-channel versus brick and mortar. Yeah. So people need to remember that before the pandemic, there was a lot of vacancy on Michigan Avenue because it was big box retail. I mean, look at, Macy's shut down.
What about Best Buy? Best Buy was at the Hancock forever.
They were at the Hancock forever, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, COVID, that made Macy's shut down. No. People need to read.
Yeah.
Macy's they were looking to liquidate a lot of their stores nationwide. Yeah. So we knew this was going to happen. If anything, the pandemic pulled the plug on a lot of,
So you think it maybe sped it up a little bit?
100%. And I honestly think, and I'll tell you, all the landlords I talk to, not just the ones I represent, but especially when we were deep lockdown, you're picking up the phone and you're asking how things are looking, especially on Michigan Avenue.
Right.
And a lot of landlords said to me, listen, every month for the past 3 years, I wondered if, Macy's, JCPenney, Kmart, what have you, Men's Warehouse, all of them, are they going to pay rent?
Yeah.
they closed, they shuttered, it helps them make more nimble decisions. So actually
Right.
it did speed it up, and I honestly in all the right ways.
So you think, so like, what about getting to that though? Like, so when you're talking about, it's like the $500 a foot pre-COVID, today it's, let's say, around $200 a foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give or take.
What would you compare, like, something on State Street, which is still good, but not as good as Michigan? Like, what's the perspective? 500 on Michigan, it would have been like maybe 250 on State or something like that?
Probably, I'd say 80 to 100 on State. And here's the thing. You got State, you got retailers looking at State, you got them looking at Rush, at Oak Street, all of that, right?
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Oak Street was crazy.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, if I'm going to pay this on Oak Street, then I'm going to go on Michigan Avenue.
Right.
And again, this was all happening.
Wait, so Oak Street was more expensive than Michigan?
In some respects, in some regards, absolutely.
Wow.
Because, it's that sexy street where
That
you
little
got
strip.
very, very high end.
I'm not rich enough to go on that street, but I walk past it
Yeah,
sometimes.
I walk
you know?
in,
I look
my
through
purse,
the mirror
like, what's
and
my
say,
my
wow.
credit card is burning. But again, pre-COVID, a lot of retailers were looking, I don't need this much square footage. I still want to stay in these in this tourist area.
Yeah.
So State Street, Rush, those are really good alternate locations. So again, COVID just sped a lot of that up. The riots didn't help.
Yeah. How much do you think the riots impacted the actual market and the attraction to want to be on Michigan Avenue?
It devastated it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Celine, you've got Chanel. A lot of them pulled out, and they will not come back.
Yeah.
I mean, and
ever.
And,
do you need a good sales guy to pitch him? I mean, I got it. I got this. I'll call him up.
oh, I want to do a Chanel deal.
Yeah.
No, because listen, the one thing that has irritated me the past few years in retail, everyone's like, oh, retail's dead, because everything's going online.
Yeah.
No, you always have to have brick and mortar. It's called clicks to bricks.
Right.
For as many
Clicks to bricks.
Clicks to bricks. For
I like
as many
that.
retailers as we've seen shut down, COVID or not, you see almost twice as many, no joke, and I can get you a better stat, that open because they started online. I mean, look at Armitage Avenue, for example.
I love Armitage, yeah.
Armitage is the clicks to bricks.
Yeah.
That's where they go. You've got Warby Parker, you've got Thai Bar, all of these bonobos.
I go to
all of them.
Was it Keels?
Keels is my jam.
I gotta get some eye cream.
But all of them started online,
Yeah.
and at some point they had a push to brick and mortar. So it's this beautiful
Well, then
balance.
things like brand awareness, right? Like
100%.
Like, I mean, I online shop more than I probably go to places, just because I don't.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't buy much as this, but like I do like to actually go into the store and see some
Touch
of the
and
stuff.
feel.
Yeah.
8% of consumers, and this includes millennials, only 8% of consumers are 100% online.
Huh.
Most start looking for deals online, and then they go in store.
Yeah.
And if you think about all the retailers on Michigan Avenue, so foot traffic, BizNow just yesterday, interesting that, thank you BizNow for putting this out because it helped with our conversation today. Just yesterday, they put out a report, as they do weekly on retail. Foot traffic is up. I mean, it's ridiculous.
On Michigan Avenue or just in general?
On Michigan Avenue specifically, but in general, if you look across the nation.
Yeah.
And you look at all of the retailers on Michigan Avenue, the majority of them, Nordstrom's a great example, Bloomie's is another, have a really great online presence, but people are going in-store to return items. And what are they doing? They're spending money.
Well, you go in store, you return, you start looking around.
Yep.
Like, this looks pretty good.
Which is why Kohl's is such a genius, because Kohl's has an Amazon drop in the middle of their store. It's genius,
That's
right?
actually a really good idea.
But you think about that with the foot traffic increasing, but now you look at the supply chain demand, this huge issue we have, people are extremely, extremely concerned as we're going into the holidays.
Yeah.
Are my gifts going to come in time?
I have a Paw Patrol tower in the backseat of my car right now that I've had because we were nervous about it selling out for my son.
Okay, so I love that you said that because the number one retailer right now in store, anything that has to do with toys and games.
Yeah, I have all online Christmas shopping done because I'll be damned if this kid doesn't have his gifts on Christmas.
And I love that you did that online because people are starting to do that.
Well, we did it on Target.
Target, right.
Yeah.
But that's really smart, and people are really concerned about that. So you look at Target, Best Buy, Walmart, Nordstrom.
Your big ones.
The big ones, they're all already doing holiday sales. I'm sure I hope you got this on sale.
I don't know. I was just.
You don't need an upset child, that's priceless.
I was just
right
told
there.
my wife I have to go pick it up, and my clients are rummaging around a Paw Patrol towel right now to get in the backseat of the car because I keep forgetting to take it
I
out.
love that you got that.
But you said an interesting thing about foot traffic. Do you know like what the foot traffic was like pre-COVID to now? Like what the difference is like percentage-wise by any chance?
I don't, but I will tell you, I did, again, in this BizNow article yesterday, they did talk about that. And actually, vacancy rates along Michigan are at 19%.
Right.
Which is actually less than it was in 2019.
Really?
Right.
So I thought vacancy, and that's one of my questions here.
Yeah.
Like, what is the vacancy rate? So if it's at 19%, on average, though.
We've recovered pretty much. I mean, honestly.
Well, let's back it up, though, because people always talk. I think we're a very dramatic society, right? So, what would be an average, doesn't really matter. Let's imagine a perfect economic environment, an average vacancy rate for Michigan Ave. Because it'll never be like 100%, I'm assuming, right? What would be average? Like 5, 10%?
I'd probably say 10, 12%.
Okay.
This is my humble opinion, but
okay.
yeah.
So, like 19's not atrocious.
No. And it was
because you're reading everything in the headlines that like Michigan Avenue is like pretty much dead. It's done. It's like stick a fork in it. That's
so those
that's
who
what
say
I
that,
think.
have they been on Michigan Avenue recently? Because it's busy.
I don't know. I don't go on. I don't shop, but I just read headlines like clickbait, and that's why we want to try to do this is get real information out there of what's really happening. So you're saying that at 19%, let's say more of a conservative approach. Let's say 10% average. We're only 9% worse.
Yeah.
And we're technically in probably one of the worst commercial markets that the media has told you. Although you've said differently.
Which makes me just laugh.
Because you're saying overall the commercial market's not bad, right?
No. Listen, certain sectors have been devastated.
Yeah.
Your hospitality, your restaurants, and your hotels. They're slowly recovering for sure. Fine dining, it's going to take a while. Now, fast casual, it's crushing it.
But like, here's the thing I think about. Like, everybody's got a shit ton of cash right now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, me and my wife talk about this all the time. Like, I would love just to go get like a really good meal. You know what I mean? Like, and like I miss that. Like going out once every other week or something like that and doing that. Like, so fine dining, I feel like is going to come back. I think the biggest problem is just like people got to believe in the cities again, and come back down here more often.
The biggest problem with fine dining is they can't hire people.
Oh, really?
That's what it is.
Staffing.
Yeah, because I represent a lot of restaurants. Let me tell you, I did a lot of great restaurant deals last year.
Yeah.
But grand openings were pushed off 4 or 5 months because they literally they can't hire the staff. There's a real staffing issue. So people need to remember that too. That again, that to me, I consider that part of the supply chain demand, right?
So the supply chain demand. We all know about what's happening,
issue, especially commercially,
with stuff coming over here.
Yeah.
But also dealing with getting staff and work and help and stuff like that. So like, what do you think is going to happen on Michigan Avenue to try to do that? Do you think like fine dining is a good attraction? Like we're reading a lot about like, is there amusement parks coming? There's like weed centers coming on there. Like, what are some of the big things that people are looking for?
So I love that you said that. So first of all, going back to this vacancy rate, 'cause that plays into what you're talking about. People need to remember that it's a lot of big box is vacant, right?
Yeah.
And I know everybody thinks, oh, you can just cut it up. You can't sometimes. It just depends on column lines. There's a lot of variables that go into it.
You can't just like put a line on.
Well, and sometimes it's more expensive to divide the space unless you've got 2 in hand, for example, if you're dividing it.
Yeah.
But you've got the vacant Apple store.
Yeah.
You've got the vacant now. Macy's at Water Tower, and among others, and so that contributes, to a higher vacancy rate.
And I think it's because they're flagships, though. So like the perception is like Apple, Best Buy, Macy's. These are huge spaces, and like even myself that doesn't shop there, I just think like, man, there's just like a black hole where there's something that like I want to go to, but I know what it is, So like, why do you think like what's going to fill that then? What's going to happen with that?
Well, I love that you said like the experiential.
Yeah.
That was always the hot button prior to the pandemic, but I think now more than ever, especially because people have pent up demand and they want to get out and do things. I mean, I like to just walk my dog at Navy Pier.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's cool.
I mean, again, it's crazy there.
Yeah.
And so you look at that along Michigan Avenue, 40% of the city's sales tax is generated on Michigan Avenue, and most people 40%. And most people who shop on Michigan Avenue are tourists, right? So you need to or those who are in offices, which we know offices devastated, and they're going and doing shopping at lunchtime. So again, it's going to take some time to come back. But I do see, there's a lot of conversations. I think definitely the experiential retail will come and you do your experiences. I don't think we need any more escape rooms.
Yeah,
but don't laugh, but I mean seriously, these axe throwing, which axe throwing and drinking, I just don't know if the two go together.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't go, because I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be going.
Definitely not going anywhere near that.
But I see that happening, especially as people start filling up the hotels again.
Yeah.
Or the jump rooms, the trampolines, things of that nature. Pop-ups are huge, or you get these short-term, you've got...
What can I ask, well, we're talking about that.
Yeah.
What is the definition of a pop-up store for everybody out there? Because I've heard different things. Like, what's in the commercial world, what does it actually mean?
A pop-up it's a short-term tenant that goes into a space. And, and Simon Shopping Malls just knew that this was going to be a thing. So a lot of their vacant retail around the country, they have big box. What they'll do is they'll chop it up or they'll divide it somehow, and it would be a cool experience, sort of these Instagram experiences. So you have this cool. Think Dylan's Candy Bar. Obviously, she's crushing it, but imagine if she was brand new. She could do a cool pop-up, which is just a little tiny. It could be no bigger than this table, but this space, right? And you couple walls full of like badass candy and like cool confections and what have you.
Right.
And then of course you've got the cool wall where people are buying the candy and taking the pictures.
Yeah.
They generate enough sales, it proves that they're going to do well in the market, and they feel more confident than doing a longer term lease.
So getting like a bigger piece of the pie of a store.
Totally. And it's a great solution.
I like that you said it's like an Instagram kind of like little store, which wouldn't be a bad idea for.
They do that. I mean, that's really like they really set it up that way.
Yeah.
And what's great about that though is that, especially in tourist corridors like Michigan Avenue, they make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, for those who aren't aware, I have a specialty in cannabis. I've been in this space. I'm one of few commercial brokers who actually really, so I represent several of the larger groups, the MSOs, the multi-state operators.
Yeah.
So our dream is to see Michigan Avenue. I mean, hello, the old Apple store. Wouldn't that not be the greatest dispensary on the planet?
Yeah. I mean it's a cool spot.
It would be a cool spot, but here's the problem. As of right now, Mayor Lightfoot and her administration, that's the red zone. So from Division down to 16th on Michigan Avenue, not a lot. And then up towards the river, that whole area, you're not allowed to do cannabis.
So why would they? So like personally, I'm not a big cannabis person at all. But I always say everybody can do whatever they like, right? So each their own. Why would she care if it's going to bring in sales? Like, because it is technically legal now at this point, right?
It's 100% legal. And and what's great is,
we've had the Cresco guys on, Joey Caltabiano.
Well, and Joey C is who I wanted to see. I wanted to see them.
Yeah.
I thought they would have done great on Michigan Avenue. And here's the thing. People need to stop looking at weed as being weed.
Right.
It is an amazing money generator.
Yeah.
And, and I, of course, for me, Colorado's shown, prescription drug use is down 25%. I mean, opioid addiction's a real thing. And so you can get into the whole of that, but you look at the moneymaker of it and, the first dispensary opened January 1st, 2020. Yeah. And of course the pandemic, right? That first year, I mean, they did $1 billion in sales, but you look what this state needs, the sales tax, 40%. If you don't have your medical card and you're buying adult recreational use, you're paying 40% tax
on just for
on
buying
weed, man.
Huh.
Yeah, so, and that goes to the city. We have, goes to the state. We have a huge deficit, right? With taxes. So imagine having a dispensary or 10 of them.
Yeah.
In a tourist corridor,
where
you got people coming in from states like Indiana and Wisconsin, for example, where they can't buy it. They're coming here. So to your point, why doesn't she do that? I don't know, and I'm angry.
Yeah.
And especially when you look at how well this, the city has done.
I think it would make sense if you put. I don't know if you want to put 30 of them on there because then Michigan Avenue would become like something different. But
100%.
You get 1 or 2 of them on there. So like.
But they look like Apple stores, right? They're beautiful.
Yeah, they do. So let's say you get one of those on there and something else. Like what are some of the other big businesses that are even looking at Michigan Avenue? Like, because obviously you guys represent a huge portion of the commercial market. Like, what are some of the ideas being tossed around to fill some of these vacancies or kind of change? Because I'm assuming Michigan Avenue, with retail changing, and you mentioned this earlier that retail always seems to reinvent itself. Like, what's the next big thing and big things that people are looking at with reinventing all of Michigan Avenue? Because I feel like this is a moment where like COVID may have kind of sped us up to be like, hey, the world has changed in general. Not even. Take COVID out of the mix. Take the riots out of the mix. Like, people have changed. Social media has changed. We are changing with it. I'm assuming retail and everything else has to change. What are some of the things that they're talking around the water cooler here about what's going to happen?
Well, okay, so because people are working from home more, or there's that hybrid model, it's the Office Depots, the Office Maxes of the world are really having their moment, as are furniture stores, and they in general.
Office Depot's having a moment?
anything office, right? And anything furniture, because people are setting up home offices.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
Home Depot is crushing it. I'm telling you, I know people are going to laugh, but I think it'd be really sexy to see something like a Home Depot on Michigan Avenue. I mean, don't laugh at me, but you've got, because that, especially once the condos start coming back.
You know what? It makes sense. So the minute you just said it, I felt like a light bulb went off. Because, like, think about how much shit you need just living in a house, remodeling, small stuff.
Totally. Yep.
And I'm just thinking the closest Home Depot for anywhere here on the near north side would be the one on Halstead in Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
That's the closest one.
The closest one. Yep.
Yeah. Huh. That's a good idea.
Home Depot, call me, because I'm telling you.
HD, let's go here. Let's tag them on this. Let's get them going.
But please, seriously. But also furniture stores.
Yeah.
And I know actually several higher end furniture stores that are looking up and down on Michigan Avenue. They're a great tenant to backfill space.
Well, look what RH did. RH, like, we'll go there just to grab like a drink.
Talk about experiential retail, right? I mean, you're going there, you're grabbing a drink, and 3 Arts Cafe, which is so sexy. I was just at the one in New York.
Then I'm buying outdoor furniture for $5,000. Like, I don't know what happened.
Go to the one in New York. Yeah. It's stunning. I was there 3 weeks ago, and then of course, we have a little bit of champagne. And what do? All of a sudden, I'm buying a $300 pillow. I don't know why.
Right.
But I mean,
it looks good after 5
glasses. But we are spending more time in our homes, and people want to renovate them. What's interesting too, and this is a theory I have, along with a couple of other retail brokers for the Macy's at Water Tower.
Yeah.
We're looking at retail of similar footprints around the country, even if they're in grocery anchored centers in the suburbs. It's still big box retail. And you're watching, even in the suburbs, in Wilmette, for example, there's a shopping center, and a developer bought it. And what they're doing is they're redeveloping it into a true lifestyle center. Okay. So you're looking at micro apartments.
Yep.
You're looking at co-working. And you're looking at really mini retail, all of it, all in one.
Yeah.
To me, that makes the most sense for Macy's.
Yeah,
right?
It's a big spot.
And listen, these micro apartments are a real thing, because you've got folks that are graduating college. They want to be in a big urban environment. They can't afford the rents or the condo prices, but they want to be where everything's happening.
Right.
But they want to be where everything's happening, so they don't need to be in their apartment.
So how does stuff like that happen? Like, how do these deals get done to be able to get like Michigan Avenue turned around? Because I think there's a perception issue right now on Michigan Avenue.
Yep.
There's a lot of good ideas, it seems, and it's, obviously you're one broker, but you talk to a lot of these other people, and I'm assuming are people foaming at the mouth to try to like be the guy that gets the deal done on Michigan, to like change it and say like I did that? Like is that like happening right now?
Absolutely, it's always happening.
Yeah.
We have
real estate, we have egos
about
right?
that. Yeah.
Real estate people have egos.
I was on a podcast yesterday with a group of commercial brokers from around the country.
Yeah.
We're all in the big prop tech space, so it's all about prop tech. But we were talking about commercial in general, and those of us who do retail. And it is amazing, because one of the gals said it's fun to drive down whatever the street is. She's in San Diego, and she actually compared me to Michigan Avenue and some of these other neighborhoods. And you can look at it at a storefront and say, I did that.
Right.
And and I'm very proud of the retailers, right?
Right.
But you put your finger, like our fingerprint's always going to be.
Right.
And it's beyond the ego, but it's a legacy.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so it is cool. And Michigan Avenue does need to change, because I kind of thought I was a little bit tired before the pandemic too, right? And people are panicking. Oh my God, retail, it's dying because all these retailers are leaving. Target needs half the footprint they needed in the past.
Yeah.
But they're tripling the amount of locations they're looking for. It's just reinventing this. Even Macy's, they don't need 50,000 feet anymore.
Right.
They do just as well in 20,000, even 10, because they have that online presence. So it's that balance between omni-channel and retail. People need to remember that. That's why
I still think people like to go in,
100%.
Now
they don't need to go into that big of a store.
I'm just now like starting to have kids. We have two little ones, and I was like disappointed when I read like the Disney store like closed, because I always wanted to take my kid to one of these things. Why don't they get like a killer? Remember Big? You see Big? Like this
FAR Schwartz.
Yes. Why are they getting a big toy store on this thing? Like an experience.
So it's interesting
what's
you bring
going on
that
with
up
toy
about
stores these days?
Well, and that's what you and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Toy stores.
Yeah.
That's the toys and games
I
and
got this
sporting goods.
We talk about it. I got a Paw Patrol thing here. What do we got going on?
Toys, games, and sporting goods.
Yeah.
Hottest
Why
right
don't
now.
they have a 6th storefront there? Wouldn't that be awesome? Why?
I'm kind of hoping they're going to look, because at one time FAR Schwartz in New York was in trouble.
Yeah.
they restructured internally, and they're doing a really good job. To be honest with you, I think that's one of them people are trying to go after.
What's happening? Like, why are those? Because your kids, you had Toys R Us, you had FAOs around. You just had like cool stuff. Now everything's online. I see, but like I'm assuming, like I know my kid, if we go past a toy aisle, like that's it. Like a Target or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a temper tantrum on buying something. You know what I mean?
So you're gonna see a lot because during the pandemic, sporting goods.
Yeah.
Nobody could buy. My family's from Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Nobody could buy an RV or a jet ski within a 500-mile radius.
Yeah.
I represent Wheel and Sprocket, which is this fabulous bike shop out of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Last year, we look for one deal a year because they look between 10 and 15,000 feet, and they're very, very strategic on how they look. I can't find them enough space because they are so back ordered on bikes, and all bike shops are, and because people are getting out and they're.
But why? There's no bike shop on Michigan Avenue, like a small footprint of that. Why not?
But there should be,
right?
and I think there will be. And you know what? I also would love to see when we talk about experiential, Peloton.
Yeah.
Groups like you got Peloton, you got Tonal, the one.
Yeah, there's Soul Cycle, there's all those things.
Okay, I really think they would be great to have a showroom along Michigan Avenue because again, test it out, feel because people. I mean, you're going to put that much money into Peloton.
Yeah,
I kind of want to test drive it first.
Yeah.
And going to Midtown isn't enough, right?
Yeah.
I actually want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot more showrooms for that type of use. For sure, toys. So for sure, games.
I feel like, man, I got a lot of pitches. I think I can now I'm juicing my ideas up here. But so what's been the holdup of getting these guys to sign on? Let's look at some negative things. Is it the crime that's getting people a little bit nervous? There's been a lot of people running into Burberry's and grabbing $60,000 worth of purses.
That was so devastating to watch that.
Obviously we had the looting. Since the looting, we haven't seen anything mass destruction. But we are seeing a lot of smaller crime. How much is that impacting retailers wanting to go on Michigan Avenue? Because I talked to cops, and in fact, a lot of cops have told me that the most nervous place for them to be is on Michigan Avenue because everybody's got a cell phone.
Yep.
If they make one wrong move, their career is over. And whether it's right or wrong, I don't want to get controversial on it. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. What are the retailers thinking when they hear that? Is that pulling them back?
It's definitely pulling them back, and I'll tell you what, that's actually why a lot of them are leaving Michigan Avenue. They have confidence in Chicago.
Yeah.
But they don't. But people are pushing to the neighborhoods now.
Yeah.
So they're pulling out of Michigan Avenue, and they are going to Armitage. They're going to Damon. It's interesting. A lot are going up to Andersonville.
Yeah.
Which it's
growing.
It's very
the real estate up there's doing great.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
That a lot of the boards are off of the windows because that was.
It was terrible.
Oh my gosh! So I work with the dermatology, really fabulous dermatology group, and we were looking at office space on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah.
This was last summer, and it was the weekend that they were anticipating more riots. And as we're walking in for the showing, the broker's meeting us, and she's beautiful in her suit.
Yeah.
And we're all like, and then you hear bang, 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 and we turn around and they're putting all the boards up. I'm like, this cannot bode well.
Yeah.
But my client was like, no, I have a great business.
Yeah.
We partner with Northwestern and Rush. We know we're going to be okay here.
Right.
They're just being precautionary.
Right.
And I like that. I appreciated that. And it's Chicago strong in that regard. But I work with a lot of nationals who have completely pulled back all expansion right now in Chicago
because of it.
Especially one of them, we were looking Michigan Avenue and Southport because to me Southport is like the offshoot of Michigan Avenue.
Yeah.
And they're way too nervous about the crime.
Is there anything that they're saying in the commercial world that they're trying to get Lightfoot and the rest of the Chicago aldermen and stuff to try to help the situation? Is there anything that they're trying to do to try to fix this?
Yeah, and I actually have several retailers I'm working with, depending on some of the neighborhoods we're looking in, and we're having conversations a lot sooner with aldermen than we would have previously.
Yeah.
And I love that you talk to the police because I do as well. And
I stop everyone.
We listen. Well, there's a lot of beat cops that are out when I'm looking at property and I'm pulling them over and we're having conversations with them, and it does feel good to definitely see them.
Yeah.
Listen, it's Chicago. We all still need to be aware.
Yeah.
Right. And the confidence will come back. And again, your question, why aren't some of these groups, what is their hesitancy to jump on Michigan Avenue? There's not necessarily a hesitancy, but when you're looking at these rental rates and, the biggest problem with people signing leases right now, I guarantee you that there's a lot of paper going back and forth negotiating on Michigan Avenue right now. I mean, I can't tell you who, but I know that there's a few.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what the biggest problem is the supply chain demand, because once you sign a lease, you have to start ordering your equipment.
Yeah.
I represent Focus,
Yeah.
Jamba, Cinnabon.
Yeah.
We're having a really tough time figuring out when we're going to sign leases for Jamba, because they have to order their equipment. And before it would take 2 weeks to get the equipment.
Yeah.
Now it's taking 6 weeks. That's eating into free rent. That's eating into build
Right.
out. That's eating into us getting permitting. And that's on, a fast casual end. You look at these big retailers,
Right.
clothing retailers, a lot of designers that I'm working with now who want smaller space on Michigan Avenue. They can't sign a lease, nor do they want to, until at least March or April of next year, because they've already ordered the clothes.
Right.
A lot of them are not getting them till next June.
Wow.
So
that's a bigger issue, but yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
where the landlord and the tenant need to come together and get creative. Like, I will commit to your space, but we have to work out something, 'cause I'm not
Yeah.
paying rent on a space that's going to stay vacant for
Right,
6
right,
months.
right. So it seems like there's a lot of positive out there as much as negative is put out. Because, I feel like
There's
I
a
read
ton
more
of
negative
positive, yeah.
than I read positive. And where do you, if you had a crystal ball, how long do you think it's going to be till Michigan Avenue comes back, let's say, to where it reinvents itself to be, again, a district where people are just like, that's Michigan Avenue? Because, in my opinion right now, it has a very negative impact on most people.
Yeah.
Specifically in the residential market. It's almost eye-opening that when I talk to people and I say, what do you think about these units on Michigan? They're like, that's just too dangerous. And I've never heard that before.
Right. It's
so
hard to hear that.
It's all I hear.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, all day. And I know it's not PC or things to talk about, but it's the reality of the situation.
It's exactly what we should be talking
Right.
about, though. It is the reality of the
Right,
situation.
because you have to say it. And the reality is, I feel it's going to change when more people are out, because I think,
agree.
And I do think that right now we're glorifying it a little bit more than it has to be, because we're at home more and we're a little bit more bored.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Such pent-up demand.
It is. But I do think it's going to change. But do you think within 2 years, do you think Michigan Avenue will be mostly back?
100%. I was actually, in my head, I was going to say 12 to 18 months. And
Okay.
a lot of that does, a percentage of that, a large percentage of that has to do with residential.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'll have a retailer in and around, we look at a lot of stuff in Streeterville, for example, which is basically right there.
Right.
Are people even buying condos?
Right.
What are people paying for condos?
Yeah.
And that is a big question, because that's their audience, right?
Right, because the more people are there. I mean, there's two markets, and I talk about this all the time, that don't exist right now, and people who watch these know this, and that's the out-of-state buyer that wants to buy a pied-à-terre. They're coming from Florida, Arizona, California, New York, your big wealthy areas. And you have your international buyers, which are great for tourism. They buy a $5 million spot. They're here a couple times a year. Must be nice.
Totally.
But looking to get adopted by any of you guys out there?
Me too. We'll do a 2 for 1.
But those are big markets, and we haven't seen those. I think partly because people can't come here internationally. A lot of people like to have representatives, and I think the out-of-staters, now that the vaccine is out, people are feeling more comfortable with travel again, and we are starting to see that market slowly come back. In fact, the last 2 to 3 weeks, almost all my sales have been out-of-state buyers. Almost every single sale I've had is out-of-state.
I love to hear that.
Which is big, and we're actually really slow in the outskirts. I call them that offensively, guys. I know some people comment on these, get mad when I say Lincoln Park's outskirts. I mean outside of the immediate downtown area.
Yep.
But most of my business has actually been in high rises lately, which is a good sign. So I think we're in recovery right now.
I do too.
I'm not saying we're back. I'm not saying it's a seller's market. I'm saying it is definitely a hardcore buyer's market, but we're in recovery mode. So I think the downtown condo market next year will be much better than it is this year, and I think we'll be fully back by 2023. So we'll see 17, 18 levels.
I completely agree. And I will tell you, again, BizNow, National Real Estate Investor, Real Deal, ICSC, you're reading all these, huge commercial publications, all of them. It's like they might as well just write one article, because they're all saying the same thing, which I love. Mm-hmm. This is going to be one of the biggest shopping years. I mean, this is going to be such a moment for retail.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already seeing pre-Black Friday sales outpacing even last year.
Yeah.
And most of it is in store, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
most of it's in store.
I read all those articles myself. I read all the residential, all the big cities. I read the commercial, read the internationals to try to understand where the market's going. These are the ways you predict patterns, guys. And I think, the point of today was to try to really show people what's actually happened in Michigan Avenue. It's not all doom and gloom. And honestly, markets go in cycles. You can't have an all-time high. We're riding a good wave in general. And although the suburbs and residential real estate across the country is having the greatest year ever, big cities did get crushed, but it's a way to kind of reset it and, reinvent ourselves. And I think 5 years from now, we're going to look back and say, man, that was the best thing that ever happened.
I completely agree. Again, and again, it was the best thing that ever happened. And like I said to you, it helped a lot of retailers make decisions, whether to close or whatever. And that winds up helping in the future. Yeah. People have to get back to work. That's the biggest problem. It's
going to happen. Yeah. Everybody who listens to these podcasts know it's going to, my opinion is very clear when I think it's going to happen.
But I'm even saying, like, I love Nordstrom, and the Nordstrom on Michigan Avenue, it's my jam. I have a really hard time in there because, we had the car gala recently, right? Yeah. I went in there to go get a gown, which is where they don't, up until, what is the date today? Actually, I think it's this weekend. They're bringing back the gown section because it was completely gone because nobody was going to events.
Oh, that's right.
But also, they don't have staff. I mean, the customer, and I love customer service there, right? There is none because there's nobody there to help you.
You're like the only one there. You're like, I got to try these on.
I'm not kidding you. I had to go to a separate floor just to go check out. And that is, if you go into a lot of stores along Michigan Avenue, that's what's happening. And they want to hire people. You see the signs everywhere. Even Starbucks, they've limited their hours. Not necessarily the roastery, which is amazing, but some of the other ones.
It's cut down hours.
And I'm tempted to go work at Nordstrom for Thanksgiving. I could get some killer overtime and I could get a nice discount, right? And so I think that does 100% play into this, and people need to keep that in mind. But it'll be back. It'll be back. But I think the holidays are really going to help pump that up. Yeah. And I can't wait to see those numbers after the holidays. Yeah. I think the retailers are going to look and say, yep, all right, time to come and start leasing on Michigan Avenue. Yeah.
This is great. Well, listen, I think everybody out there now can have a little bit more positive spin on the negative energy that's been happening on Michigan Avenue. And we appreciate you coming out and giving us your wisdom.
This was fun. I could talk to you all day.
I know. We could go on forever. But thanks for listening to Laricy Live, guys. Make sure to tune into our next episode and subscribe to our podcast. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.